Hello everyone. I wanted to share a quick video about the TCI framework and also the curriculum changes. So my goal with the new social studies program that incorporates TCI is to create a classroom community where the students are respectful, where the students are reflecting and thinking critically, and also where the students are working collaboratively and connected to the wider community, and developing habits and skills related to being good citizens and good people. These are some skills and pedagogies that I'd like the children to develop over time, and also some pedagogies that I would like you to use, which involve things that probably won't be too new to you, like collaborative grouping, read alouds, think, pair, shares, cause and effect, and obviously reviewing and analyzing and using things like graphic organizers, charts, maps, graphs, and some new ones perhaps for you, which deal with an inquiry-based approach and also where the children are analyzing and working with primary sources and secondary sources. And some effective classroom characteristics, again, for social studies involve things like utilizing higher level questioning, connecting to students' past knowledge or experience, and also communicating a roadmap to children specifically so that they understand what the objective is and what they're going to learn and how they should be expected to show what they have learned or that they have learned it, meaning the assessment. And you want to try to provide a roadmap for children that does that. Some civic dispositions that I'd like you to try to develop involve a commitment to social justice, individual responsibility, promoting the common good of all people, again, thinking critically about the past and not just accepting events as quote-unquote the truth, having compassion for others and the environment, and also negotiation, and above all, compromise. We want to focus on developing students' skills in social studies and allow them to have authentic assessments. This is going to involve you phrasing things with an essential question for units as well as each day, and also teaching children to use evidence, which may come in the form of a secondary source, which is a source that came after an event occurred, and also primary sources, which may be created or drawn up or spoken or what have you at the time. So it's someone's lived experiences that they have represented. And each is different and allows us to see things differently. There are a couple of links in this slide. The first one links to authentic assessments, and it gives you some ideas for authentic assessments that you can use. And the second one links to an instructional framework, which is modeled for social studies. And this is your sort of breakup in terms of time, how your 40 minutes or 45 minutes of time can be broken up, and some suggested ideas for doing that. So the new social studies program is going to use something called the C3 framework, which stands for College, Career, and Civic Readiness, or Civic Life. And the C3 framework prepares children for college, careers, and civic life, as I said. Inquiry, asking questions, is at the heart of social studies and the C3 framework. And it's going to involve interdisciplinary applications like language arts and the arts in general. And it's going to involve enduring understandings, those key essential questions and sub-questions, and skills, which emphasize children hopefully becoming ready to enter the world around them by being people who ask questions instead of always just accepting things as quote-unquote the truth. And we do want there to be explicit and direct connections to language arts through our new curriculum and this framework. And the reason is there are three reasons, actually, as to why we're doing this. The first one is because social studies has been marginalized, largely due to it not being a standard, tested on a standardized test. So what we're trying to do is teach literacy through the content areas, of which social studies is one, and it's being allocated for 40 minutes all day, 40 minutes a day all year. Using the C3 framework and these new resources is going to motivate the students, and also the future of our democracy and creating active and responsible citizens is a part of this. We need children who are willing to go out and vote and be a part of political campaigns and being willing to put service above themselves and so on. These are three main reasons why we're choosing this framework. Some key components involve, like I said, that big question, an activity, some supporting sub-questions that are aligned to that big question, assessments that check student knowledge, some analysis of sources, which are usually primary sources that are all aligned back to the supporting question, and a summative performance task, which is argumentative in nature, where basically the students are staking a claim or having a point of view about the original question. And the opportunity, the last thing of this is that there is an opportunity for students to take informed action in the world around them. So we want this to be as real life as possible and give the children an opportunity to act like the engaged citizens that we want them to be, and we want to do this at young ages. It works like this. This is where the big question comes into play. The big question and the content is related to one of 4 disciplines, which are here. This is the part where the children are gathering and evaluating sources, whether they be primary or secondary sources, and they stake their claim and develop it and use that evidence to cite specific evidence from the text or the map or chart or graph or whatever your sources are. This is where they communicate or critique or make their conclusion in whatever frame it is, whether it be a writing piece, a flip grid, or what have you. And the last part of all this in Dimension 4 is, like I said, taking informed action. This is what your TCI framework is going to look like when you open it up. And you go to teachtci.com and you pick your program from among the list of the 6 items in the list. And if you'll notice along the left here, these are the various parts of the project. It has activities in it. It has materials that are already built in it. It has readings that are there. All of this can be translated into Spanish. It can be read to the children. It has different reading levels that are available, some vocabulary flip cards, some assessments that can be created, all here. This is just an example of what it looks like for you. But everything that's available is available through this bar on the left. Here's an example of what the C3 framework would look like as an example of a project-based learning approach. So the big question that I came up with for grade 4 would be, how should we view someone like Columbus? And I linked in some 5th grade standards there, which are analyzing historical events from the past to explain how they led to the creation of the state of New Jersey or the United States, and use a variety of sources to illustrate how our identity has evolved over time. And in staging this question, maybe you have a discussion about what students know about Christopher Columbus and Columbus Day, which will give you an opportunity to review how and why Columbus Day developed, and to allow students to consider how Columbus affected both Native Americans and what we now call the United States. What they could do as an assessment for this would be to construct an argument, or an e-flip book, or a presentation as Google Slides, or poster, or as an essay, or what have you, that discusses that big question about who Columbus is, and let's relate some evidence from both historical, primary, and contemporary sources, and acknowledge that there are different ways of looking at someone like Columbus. So maybe you look at Columbus from the point of view of his accomplishments, and the extension to the real world would be commemorating how we look at a timeline of Columbus's events, and then discuss how we should recognize Columbus. Do we recognize him? Do we change the name of the holiday? And as part of your taking informed action, each child can write a proposal to someone else, perhaps a superintendent, perhaps the school board, perhaps a parent, or the teacher, or what have you, explaining how Columbus could or should be memorialized, which has connections back to language arts. Now, there's a couple opportunities for sources. One would be this, which is President Johnson's statement about how Columbus should be a national holiday, which was created back in 1966 as a proclamation. And another could come directly from the TCI framework materials, which shows a map shortly after Columbus sailed to what was now called Hispaniola. And you analyze those sources. These are some examples of driving or essential questions that would be appropriate for our children at the K-2 level, and sub-questions can obviously be built in and built off of those. Here's an example of a K-2 lesson which deals with inquiry, and you'll see that I've linked some standards here. I've linked a story which is called Seven Blind Mice, which has mice that basically the premise of this story is that none of the mice listen to one another and they don't make any progress in looking at what they finally determine is an elephant. But I've linked it here, as well as a possible, some possible links and some different activities and assessments. The last piece that I wanted to incorporate into the program that's new is service learning. And I want you to understand that service learning isn't necessarily going to be an add-on or a diversion from the curriculum. It's a way of teaching the curriculum that's designed to be authentic and involves real-life scenarios and actual activities. Service learning is supposed to develop students' communication skills and require them to research, read, write, observe, listen, speak, and so forth, and to develop some character and interpersonal skills, and to empower the children. And we're going to be embedding service learning opportunities directly into the curriculum so that the children can make a positive contribution to their community and build community connections right into it. These are some steps that you can take if you decide to develop your own service learning opportunities for students in your class or your school. These are some exemplars of inquiries that can be examples for you that come out of the state of New York. And you'll just see what they look like when the link opens up. And it looks like it's just taking a second. We can skip that. And the last thing is that there are a series of helpful resources that I've included for you that will help you teach the curriculum. I've included the last one, which is the standards for the state of New Jersey, the Department of Education, which is the top link on the right-hand side. And if you open up this link and you go to page 30, you'll see where the standards start for the children in kindergarten through second grade, and they go up through page 35, and then the grades 3 through 5 standards continue on page 36. And if I would encourage you to do one thing, it would be to take a look at the first words in each standard and think about the product that is going to be needed so that children are able to show that they have mastered that particular standard. A lot of the ones on this page talk about describing or explaining and are fairly straightforward. But if you move ahead towards some of these later on page 34 and 35, you'll notice that even children as young as second grade are being asked to use primary sources and use evidence and use examples from the past and the present to talk about stereotyping and prejudice. Use, again, historical data and a variety of sources and so forth. So children at very young ages are being asked to be historians and to do things like use the evidence. So that's why a shift like the one that I described in this presentation is necessary. We have to change our practice to accommodate these standards. If you have any other questions, please feel free to bring them to my attention. There are going to be other videos coming out that describe this, but I hope that this is helpful in explaining to you what the new framework is like and what our program is designed to do. Thank you.